Hoarding, hiding, and rummaging. Let's get into this. So, people with dementia can have challenges with stuff, right? Too much stuff, not enough stuff, and misplacing stuff. Certainly misplacing stuff. So let's talk first about hoarding and clutter. Now, one of the first things we want to ask ourselves when it comes to these two things, is it really a problem? Now, hoarding and clutter can be actually therapeutic for your loved one. So if it's not a problem, like they're just kind of, putting socks over here in a pile, or they're, putting all their purses over here, or putting all of their clothes in one box, is that really a problem? No. Is it going to be a mess? Yeah, maybe, but is it a problem? Probably not. Now, there are some things that are considered unsafe, and one of them is keeping unsafe food. We do see a lot of loved ones with dementia that hide food. My mom did it. She hid a whole pack of ribs, frozen ribs, in her sock drawer underneath, and we found that, oh boy, maybe a month later. That was fun. Or putting food in their pockets, that kind of thing. So keeping unsafe food is definitely something that could be problematic. If they're doing things that could increase their chance of falling, again, clutter. So if there is a lot of clutter around the house or around their space where they're living, that might be problematic for sure. And paper clutter near appliances. So if your loved one loves to grab papers and newspapers and magazines, and they might be stuffing them in areas that might be a fire hazard. Now, if it's a health or safety problem, action certainly does need to be taken. Now, what are the causes of hoarding? A lot of people with dementia grew up in a time period of a waste not, want not mentality. So they were conditioned to not throw anything away, to save things, to essentially hoard things, right? Because times were tough. So that's something that's going to be hard to unbreak, and we're just going to have to manage and monitor. Fear of losing items, right? So, we all know that our loved one is not working with their full brain capacity, and they have this fear of losing their stuff, right? I mean, that's just natural. So they're going to start hanging on to things to have some sense of normalcy, for sure. And then, like I said, they're going to hang on to things because these items represent comfort and security for them, this familiarity. So they just are grasping onto that because, again, they're always looking for a safety blanket, a safety net, something that they can relate to. And some of these things certainly are going to be purses for women, clothing, wallets, and paper and mail, like we mentioned. Now, going back to clothing, this was one thing that my mom was a hoarder with, and it was later stage for sure. Moderate to late stage was when this became a problem, and this is something you're going to want to look out for, and I'll actually mention this later in this lesson as well, but she opened her own credit cards, and my dad knew she was going to do this, but she wanted to have her own credit card, and this was earlier on before she was moderate, but the problem developed later on, and she wanted to pay her own bills and all this other, so my dad's like, cool, fine, no problem. Well, it turns out she ended up racking up $25,000 in credit card debt for clothes. So that was her version of hoarding. So once she was in moderate severe, my dad started getting her credit card bills and things like that. He was like, holy moly, and realized what she had been doing, and it was all clothing. So another form of hoarding example right there. And a stressful life event could cause any kind of hoarding for sure. Because again, like I said earlier, they're going to want to hang on to things that are familiar. So if it's a move, for example, they're going to want to cling on to what's familiar in their old home or things that made them feel safe and secure where they were before. Also, things that are perceived as valuable, they're going to want to hang on to and probably hide. These might be things that are actually hidden, things that they want to hide, like whether it's jewelry or photos or things that they perceive as of great value. So here are some tips to help with hoarding and rummaging. So if it is a problem, we slowly want to start eliminating things. So we don't want to clear out all the clutter altogether because that would be too traumatizing for your loved one. Again, remember we said that a change in environment can cause all kinds of reactions and situations with your loved one. So we want to remove things slowly. Just start taking pieces away, right? To eliminate some of that clutter and make it more of a safe environment. Another great idea is to provide rummaging stations. Now you can do this with just an actual drawer in your dresser. So you could have a rummaging station for socks or whatever whatever they like to rummage and kind of put in boxes and things like that. Or have a box in a dedicated room where they can put their things in and they can kind of rummage through. You can be creative with this, but create a station specifically for that and guide them to that when they start getting into this rummaging state. So if your loved one enjoys sorting or organizing, much like my mom, like I said, she was a great organizer and she loved that kind of stuff, give them a basket or clothes to sort and fold. Now, this is great because they can help you with laundry, right? So let them do it, right? Or if you're having a dinner party or something, or a fake dinner party, have them fold napkins for you and towels and say you're using them for your party. If papers and newspapers and magazines are the issue and they're hanging on to old ones, negotiate. Now, trading out these old ones for a couple new ones. So you take the pile of all of the big pile of the old ones and maybe give them one or two new ones to work with. So slowly removing the clutter and slowly removing the things that they're kind of, connected with, right? But in an overwhelming way. So one thing to consider too, and this goes back to my mom's story, is maybe you want to stop junk mail and catalogs coming to the house, especially if your loved one might be a shopper or likes to order things, right? So if that has been a pattern or you're seeing that pattern, definitely eliminate any of those catalogs coming to the house to avoid you getting into a financial situation you don't want to be in. Same thing. Home shopping networks on the computer and things like that, you want to maybe eliminate those, even on the TV as well, and also reduce spending money if they are starting to spend more money and getting a little bit out of control with that. And also keep an eye on credit card applications. We're just back to my mom's situation. So really keep an eye on that, especially if your loved one was into clothing or things that might cost a little bit money. Again, being a detective, knowing their habits, knowing who they are, knowing what they like and what they might gravitate to that could be problematic down the road. So let's talk a little bit about hiding. So find their hiding spots. They tend to gravitate to the same places. So once you figure out where they're hiding things, generally that's where they're going to go all the time. So like I said, my mom put ribs in her sock drawer. That was a real big hiding place for food. Now, other great hiding spots, look in the garbage. Often they'll put things in the garbage. That's a big one. That's the first place to look, honestly, is in the garbage. Stove, putting things into the stove, into the oven. And we want to be careful with that. We might want to do a check before we turn on the oven all the time to make sure there's nothing in there that might catch on fire. Underneath clothes and drawers, which I just mentioned, the dishwasher and freezer. My mom put her glasses in the dishwasher all the time. And they did actually go through the dishwasher cycle a couple of times as well. And the freezer's a big spot too. Corners of closets, underneath, down in the floor of the closets, up above, they can reach up there, shelving and things like that. Another great idea is to start adding drain covers over your drains and garbage disposal screens. And also, so another great idea is to start adding drain covers and garbage disposal screens and then traps over your drains. So I think I mentioned this earlier, leftover food might be put in pockets and purses. So if you're noticing that your loved one is starting to gather food and put it in different places, you might want to start checking in purses and pockets as well. You want to start protecting your valuables, and I can't emphasize this enough. Do this sooner than later, and I'll tell you why, just from my own personal experiences. My mom's, a lot of her jewelry, including her engagement ring and her wedding ring, are gone. We have no idea where they are. Maybe they'll show up someday when we, when we pack up my dad's house, but we have no idea where most of that stuff went. And there was a lot of heirloom pieces there, and it's unfortunate and very sad that we don't have those pieces. So do this sooner than later. So you want to put items that can't be easily replaced in a safe and locked location, right? Things like jewelry, things like birth certificates, passports, tax records, and medical records, right? And any sentimental photos and letters. Definitely protect those, because that tends to be kind of a hoarding thing as well. So protect the ones that are of value to you and that you don't want to lose. Any like wedding albums, things like that. Another good idea is to start getting duplicates or dummies for things that might get lost or that they might hide or that they might put down the garbage disposal. Things like glasses, right? Because these are things we need regularly. Your loved one is going to need. So get another copy of their glasses. So when they get lost, you have a backup. Hearing aids for sure. Definitely need to have a duplicate of those. Medications for obvious reasons. Keys, if your loved one still has access to keys, and or if they take yours and you lose them, then you've got an extra set. Remote controls, always good to have a second one on hand. Those tend to go missing often. Cell phones. I can't tell you how many cell phones we went through. Verizon came to love us quite a bit because of my mom's cell phone situation. Eventually we had to get rid of that, and that was not a good situation. Again, it refers back to that loss of control, right? Changing her lifestyle. And so that's another one to consider. And jewelry. You might want to get some fake jewelry, which is what we did when we started realizing that mom was losing all of her stuff. We ended up getting some fake cubic zirconium jewelry, specifically for her wedding ring, because she did notice that she didn't have her wedding ring anymore, her engagement ring. And so we got another one, and she didn't know any difference. So any of the jewelry that she was upset about, we just got fakers, and it worked perfectly fine. $10, and she was happy. So that's it for hiding, hoarding, and rummaging. So hopefully you got some tips and tricks to implement into your own situation. And next up, we will be discussing shadowing, which I will be doing that lesson as well. So I'll see you over there.